Welcome back. Now for some analysis on Qatar's role in the conflict in the Middle East. Please welcome Avi Melamed, who is a former Israeli intel officer and founder of the Inside the Middle East Institute. Avi, good morning. It's great to have you with us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
The U.S. views Qatar as a major non-NATO ally, so will that bond allow American influence to cause Qatar to sever ties with Hamas?
Look, Qatar is an interesting regional player. Though small in size, Qatar is quite influential because it has two major powerful cards to play with. One is the money, the wealth they have, and the other thing is Al Jazeera, the famous news network. And Qatar has been using those tools in different ways to advance its regional and global interests. Now, Qatar is particularly know how to play different arenas at the same time. Sometimes it brings Qatar to the verge or even beyond the verge of conflict with its neighbor. Like, for example, Qatar's policy vis-a-vis Iran or vis-a-vis the Muslim Brotherhood, the mother movement of Hamas, caused in the past for a rift between Qatar and its neighbors like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Egypt, to the point there was a boycott, an Arab boycott of Qatar for a couple of years. On the other hand, it also caused from time to time some tension between Qatar and the United States of America, but it never really got to the place where there was an open rift in the relationship between the two.
So do you think that now that Qatar has negotiated with these terrorists, and of course bringing these Americans home is a good thing, do you think that we're going to see more of this?
Yes, look, this is a very cynical, sophisticated game. Hamas has an interest to try and to play and to exhaust as much as possible the cards of the hostages, because as far as Hamas is concerned, this is one of its major insurance policy to maybe, in Hamas' view, to make sure that in the end of the day he will be still standing on his feet. So Hamas will try to exhaust that card as much as possible, meaning he will adopt a policy of like, oh, I'm releasing 2 hostages here and 5 hostages there, and I'm doing this great humanitarian justice. And Qatar will continue to play the role of the go-between, the mediator. And for Qatar, it's also a great position to be in because it gives Qatar prestige, it gives Qatar central location position in the whole story, it gives Qatar power. So it's for them, it's kind of like a win-win situation to a certain extent, because there will be probably a point where the international community and the United States of America will say to Hamas, enough with this stupid game. Either we are going to release all the hostages or we are done talking. And then Qatar basically will have to be in a point that they will have to actually, I'm not sure they will be able to do that, but they will have to put the pressure on Hamas to release all the hostages without doing this salami-style method that I was describing so far.
Qatar has been dubbed the hub of diplomacy in the crisis. Now, it also has a Hamas office in its country. Do you think that there will arise a situation where Qatar has to decide between the United States and Hamas?
Look, Qatar is in a place that, as I said, it can play all cards in all directions. If it calls for the time being, for example, to kind of like appease the United States of America and calm a little bit down the anger and criticism, and to avoid open friction and open tension with the United States of America, Qatar will have no problem to say to Hamas, thank you very much, now you have to leave. They did it in the past. They will do it again if needed. Qatar is conducting a real, politics policy in the region according to its interests and according to its very interest in the region. So if it comes to the point that in order to prevent further tension with the United States, it will call for Qatar to ask the leaders of Hamas politely for the time being to leave Qatar, so will be the situation.
Right, and I want to touch on the West Bank just briefly here. The Israeli military said to have had attacked near a mosque there. So what are the optics surrounding them rooting out terrorists near a religious structure?
Look, it's a little bit ironic to say that. Across the Muslim world, thousands of Muslims have been butchered by their own brothers in mosques. But this is inner language of the Muslim world. Muslim can butcher Muslim or can kill Muslims in mosques or in cemeteries, it doesn't really matter. Now in Israel we got a situation where you got terror organizations like Hamas, ISIS, or Islamic Jihad, which is the same camp of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And they are cynically using civilians as a human shield, but also they are deliberately, knowingly installing their rockets and missiles and preparations for terror attacks. They are doing that using civilian facilities. It can be schools, it can be hospital, or a religious affiliated facility, like in the case of Jenin, the mosque in Jenin, that, by the way, was accurately, when Israel attacked that specific terror cell that was right there beneath that mosque, completing its final preparation for a bloody attack on Israeli nearby communities, the Israeli Air Force was using a high-precision weapon to actually minimize as much as possible damage to the mosque and trying to hit the cell, the terror cell that was basically hiding beneath the mosque in a tunnel, and to basically neutralize them. And this is what happened. But look, in the Arab world, anything that Israel will do in order to defend itself, obviously, is discredit. You know, it's automatically it's being, criticized for, and so on and so on. Even though I do have to mention and emphasize, there are people in the Arab world who strongly condemns Hamas for the using of its own people in Gaza Strip, the Gaza people, for using them as a human shield and for using civilian facilities, hospitals, schools, kindergartens, and as well using mosques as places from which Hamas is operating, launching rockets, storing weapons, and so on and so on. So there are such voices in the Arab world as well, and I think it's important to emphasize that as well.
Well, it's fascinating analysis from you. Avi Melamed, the founder of the Inside the Middle East Institute. Thank you.